Dear students, in this session, let us discuss about band theory of solids, on the basis of which we can explain the conducting nature or the conductance of metals, that is conductors, insulators and semiconductors. So first let me tell you what is this band. Why the term band theory? Okay, so in metals what happens? In metals, atomic orbitals of the different atoms, they are going to combine. In the first PUC chemical bonding and molecular structure we have studied already. Atomic orbitals combine to form molecular orbitals. Atomic orbitals are going to combine to form molecular orbitals. So now these molecular orbitals, what they have formed, they are having close energy. So all of them are having close energy, hence they appears to be a band. So these molecular orbitals which are having close energy, they are appears as band. So they looks like this, that's why it is a band. Okay, so now as two types of molecular orbitals are present, one is bonding, another one is anti-bonding. One which favors bond formation, means containing electrons, another which do not favors the bond formation. Like that, bands are of two types. So bands which are having electrons, bands are bands which is partially filled, band which is a partially filled with electrons. A band which is partially filled with electron is a valence band. Valence band, VB I can say. And higher energy, the empty band is called conduction band. Higher energy empty band is called conduction band. By taking these two bands, we are able to explain the conductance of metals, that is conductors, insulators and semiconductors. So now, so this is mainly depend upon the energy gap. The energy gap, which is also known as forbidden gap, energy gap or forbidden zone. So depending upon this forbidden gap or energy gap, we can explain the conductance of metals, that is conductors, insulators and semiconductors. Let us see. By using band theory of solids, we are able to distinguish between metals, those are conductors, insulators and semiconductors. So as I have told you, a band which is completely empty or higher energy band is called conduction band. A band which is partially filled or completely filled with electron is a valence bond, valence band, not bond, it is band. So these are energy levels which are closely spaced. Okay, so now let us see what happens in case of metals, why their conductivity is more and why insulators do not conduct, we can explain here. First see, in case of metals, see the direction of energy, energy goes on increasing. So in metals we have two types of bands. One is partially filled bands, or in some of the cases what happens, the unfilled conduction band or higher energy conduction band and lower energy valence band, they are overlapped with one another. In metals, some of the bands are partially filled like this, and some bands in some metals, this conduction band and valence band, they are overlapped with one another. So if this is the case, what happens? So now as it is partially filled or it is overlapped with one another, now electron can easily move or jump from valence band to conduction band. Hence, their conductivity is high. In case of metal, their conductivity is high, they are good conductors. Why it is? Because the conductivity mainly depends upon number of valence electrons per atom, as the electron can easily jump or move from this valence band to conduction band, because there is no energy gap here, they are overlapped with one another. So hence electron can easily jump from valence band to conduction band when an electric field is applied. Hence all the metals are good conductors. So when we consider some examples, even aluminium, iron, silver, okay, gold, all are metals which are having good conductivity range. Next, coming to the case of insulators. So it is very clear here. See this unfilled conduction band and filled valence band, they are separated by a large energy gap. These are separated by large energy gap. That is also known as forbidden zone. It is also known as forbidden zone. So now what happens? If there is a large energy gap between filled valence band and empty conduction band, so under an applied electric field, electron cannot jump easily from valence band to conduction band. So now electron cannot move here. Why they are not moving means because of this large energy gap present between these two bands. So as a result, what happens? Their conductivity decreases. In other words, they are incapable of conducting. They are unable to conduct the electricity. Hence they are called insulators. As there is a large energy gap or forbidden zone is present between valence band and conduction band, electron cannot move from valence band to conduction band, hence their conductivity is least. In other words, they do not conduct electricity. So when we come for examples, rubber, wood, plastic, etc. So next, let us consider the case of semiconductors. In case of semiconductors, while explaining semiconductors, I have told you, for semiconductors, by doping means addition of impurity. We have already seen the case of N-type and P-type of semiconductors, in which pure silicon or germanium crystals are doped with some other impurity atoms. By doping with some impurity or by increasing temperature, conductivity of semiconductors increases. How it is means, you observe the bands here. Once again, the filled valence band and empty conduction band, they are separated by a small energy gap. So now what happens? If you increase the temperature, if you heat a semiconductors, so now what happens? By gaining kinetic energy, by gaining that heat energy, the kinetic energy of electrons increases. They can easily jump from valence band to conduction band. See, in case of semiconductors, there is a small energy gap is present between valence band and conduction band. So whenever we going to dope, means when we are adding impurities or when we increasing temperature, so electron can easily jump from valence band to conduction band, therefore their conductivity increases. So in case of semiconductors, with increase in temperature, conductivity increases because electron can move easily from valence band to conduction band on increasing temperature, hence their conductivity increases. For semiconductors examples, we are having good examples of silicon and germanium you have already seen this one. So this is about band theory of solids that explains the conductance nature of metals, means conductors, insulators and semiconductors. So now let us see what are the applications of semiconductors. Applications of semiconductors. Let us see the applications of p-type and n-type of semiconductors. So there is a diode. So diode is the combination of p-type and n-type of semiconductors. So these diodes are used as rectifiers. They are used as rectifiers. So similarly we have NPN and PNP transistors. So NPN, so N type, P type and N type. So they are having two semiconductors are sandwiched with one more semiconductor, that is NPN means, so P is in junction between N and N, or we can have PNP transistors. So these transistors are used to modify or amplify the radio or audio signals. And the solar cell, which is a photodiode, what we are using in solar panels, the solar cell which is a photodiode, in which what we are doing, we are converting light energy into electrical energy. So these are some applications of semiconductors, particularly p type and n type of semiconductors. So the first one is diode is a combination of p type and n type of semiconductor, p type and n type of semiconductors is used as rectifier. NPN or PNP transistors are used to amplify radio or audio signals. Radio or audio signals. Third one is solar cell, which is a photodiode. Solar cell, which is used in solar panels, which is a efficient photodiode. The solar cell, which is a efficient photodiode, it is also diode only, combination of p type and n type semiconductors. It is a photodiode used to convert light energy into electrical energy. Solar energy, light energy into electrical energy. So these are some simple applications of or uses of p type and n type of semiconductors. Next, moving to the concept magnetic properties of solids. Magnetic properties of solids. So solids are having along with electrical properties, solids are having magnetic properties also. Why there is a existence of magnetic property in these solids? It is because of the presence of our electrons. In solids we have atoms, in atoms we have electrons, and because of these electrons there exists magnetic properties in case of solids. Let us discuss the magnetic properties of solids. Magnetic properties of the solids are mainly because of the electrons. So, in solids, each electron behave like a tiny magnet. Tiny magnet means very small magnetic piece. So, as each electron behave as tiny magnet, so magnetic property is measured in terms of magnetic moment. So, now the magnetic moment of these electrons are because of its two types of motion. We know electron is associated with two types of motion. So, electron revolve about its own axis, what we call spin motion. So, electron has spin motion about its own axis. Along with that, what happen? This electron is revolving around the nucleus in circular orbit. Electrons are also revolving around the circular orbits around the nucleus. So, that is called orbital motion. So, now important two more question may be arise here. So, the magnetic moment of electron is associated with which type of motions of electrons? So, magnetic moment of electron is associated with two types of motion of electrons. One is orbital motion of electron around the nucleus, and second one is spin motion of electron about its own axis. So, magnetic moment of electron is due to two types of motion. So, the first one is orbital motion around nucleus. Orbital motion around nucleus of an atom. Okay, and the second one is spin motion about its own axis. So, when a substance rotate or revolve about its own axis, it is called spin motion about its own axis. So, these are the two different types of motions of electrons which is responsible for magnetic moment, in other words magnetic properties of solids. So, each electron has its permanent spin and orbital magnetic moment, and this value is very small. And it is measured in terms of Bohr magneton. Okay, so this magnetic moment of electron is measured in, so the magnitude of magnetic moment of electron is measured in units of Bohr magneton. Bohr magneton is the unit. It is represented by mu b. So, magnetic moment of electron means each electron is associated with a permanent spin and orbital magnetic moment, and this magnetic moment of electron is measured in terms of Bohr magneton, mu b. So, this one Bohr magneton is equal to 9.27 into 10 to the power minus 24 ampere meter square. So, this is the value of one Bohr magneton. So, one Bohr magneton is equal to 9.27 into 10 to the power minus 24 ampere meter square. So this is about the motion of electron and magnetic moment of electron, which is measured in Bohr magneton. So now on the basis of magnetic properties of solids, solids are classified into 5 types. So now on the basis of magnetic properties of solids, solids are classified into 5 types. Let us see what are those. On the basis of magnetic properties of solids, on the basis of magnetic properties of solids, magnetic properties of solids, they are classified into 5 types. They are classified into 5 types. These 5 types are diamagnetic, paramagnetic, ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic, and last one is ferrimagnetic. So these are the 5 types of solids which are classified on the basis of their magnetic properties, how they are behaving in magnetic field. They are classified into 5 types. So diamagnetic, paramagnetic, ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic and ferrimagnetic. So now let us discuss these different types of solids one by one. So let us discuss first that is diamagnetic one. So these are the solids which are weakly repelled by the magnetic fields. So diamagnetic in the sense, di means 2. In these solids all electrons are paired. In these solids all electrons are paired. So there is absence of unpaired electron, hence they are not attracted by the magnetic field. So solids which are weakly repelled by magnetic field are called diamagnetic solids. The process or the phenomena is called diamagnetism. What is the reason? The reason behind is, so there is a absence of unpaired electrons. Why it is not attracted by the magnetic field means there is absence of unpaired electron. In other words, all electrons are paired. Okay. So now diamagnetic solids which are weakly repelled by magnetic field. Solids which are weakly repelled by magnetic field are called diamagnetic solids, or the phenomena is called diamagnetism. What is the reason? It is due to absence of unpaired electrons. In other words, in these solids all the electrons are paired. In these solids all the electrons are paired. Example, Example: water, NaCl, benzene C6H6, zinc. So these are the compounds which are not having unpaired electrons. In other words, all the electrons of these solids are get paired, hence these are not attracted by the magnetic field and are called diamagnetic solids or diamagnetic substances. Coming to second type, paramagnetic solids. So these are the solids which are weakly attracted by the magnetic field. So one simple reason you came to know in this case is, in order to attract with magnetic field, the must and should condition is there must be presence of unpaired electrons. So paramagnetic substances, they are attracted by the magnetic field because there is a presence of at least one unpaired electron. So there is a presence of at least one unpaired electron. When magnetic field is applied, these unpaired electrons start orienting in the direction of magnetic field, hence these are attracted by the magnetic field. So substances or solids which are weakly attracted by the magnetic field are called paramagnetic solids. The phenomena is called paramagnetism. And what is the condition why they are attracting? Means because of the presence of at least one unpaired electron in them. So unpaired electron is a necessary condition for attraction with magnetic field. So solids which are weakly attracted by magnetic field, solids which are weakly attracted by magnetic field are called paramagnetic solids or paramagnetic substances. It is due to presence of at least one unpaired electron, So we have quoted the reason also. So it is because of the presence of unpaired electrons. So here all the electrons get paired. Okay. So coming to examples. So solids containing metal ions which contain at least one unpaired electron are the examples. Example: Cu2 plus ions. You can take cupric sulfate CuSO4, or you can take CuO. So similarly you can take Fe3 plus ions or Fe3 plus ion containing compounds Fe2O3, like that. Oxygen molecule, see, this O2 is also paramagnetic. We have already discussed in first PUC, molecular orbital theory. In molecular orbital theory, we came to know that there are two unpaired electrons are present in O2 molecule in antibonding molecular orbitals. Hence it is also paramagnetic because of the presence of unpaired electron. So the next example is Cr3 plus ions containing salts or Cr3 plus ion containing compounds. Cr3 plus has unpaired electron. So chromic oxide Cr2O3, a chromic sulfate Cr2SO4 thrice. So these compounds may also be weakly attracted by magnetic field because of the presence of unpaired electrons. So the third type is ferromagnetic. So important for examination. So out of 5 you may get a 2-mark question. Out of 5 magnetic properties you may get a 2-mark question on any one of the magnetic properties. So let us see what is ferromagnetic solids. So these solids are strongly attracted by the magnetic field. So paramagnetic are those which are weakly attracted by the magnetic field, and ferromagnetic substances are those which are strongly attracted by the magnetic field. So ferromagnetic substances, these can be converted into permanent magnets. So these are strongly attracted by the magnetic fields. These can be converted into permanent magnets. So now what happens in ferromagnetic substances means, so you know already, when a substance is attracted by the magnetic field means it contains unpaired electrons. So these contain more number of unpaired electrons. Because of that one, there is a strong attraction is there with magnetic field. When magnetic field is applied to these substances, so all the unpaired electrons, they get oriented in the direction of magnetic field. Even after removing magnetic field, the order of arrangement of those unpaired electrons remains same. Hence they start behaving as permanent magnets. So there is a question in the examination, which type of magnetic substances can be converted into permanent magnets? Those are nothing but ferromagnetic substances. So best example is iron, nickel, cobalt, chromic oxide, CrO2. So these can be converted into permanent magnets because these are ferromagnetic substances. So solids which are strongly attracted by magnetic field, are called ferromagnetic substances or ferromagnetic solids. It is due to presence of more number of unpaired electrons, So important point is, these can be converted into permanent magnets. So even if you remove the magnetic field, they start attracting with magnetic field. Hence they can be converted into permanent magnets. These can be converted into permanent magnets. So which type of solids are converted into permanent magnet means it is ferromagnetic solids. So once again it is because of a more number of unpaired electrons. So coming to the example, some examples are iron, Fe, nickel, Ni, cobalt, CrO2, chromic oxide, etc. So these substances can be permanently magnetized. Because see here what happens in case of ferromagnetic substance, it contains more number of unpaired electrons. So when magnetic field is applied, so these electrons, unpaired electrons, the magnetic moment of these electrons is in the direction of magnetic field. After removal of magnetic field also, they start attracting with magnetic field. Even after removal of magnetic field, so these are attracted by some other substances, hence they can be permanently magnetized. So we have left out with antiferromagnetic substance and ferrimagnetic substance. In order to understand these two types, first we should know what are the term called domains. So in case of ferromagnetic substances, all the metal ions, they are clubbed together So they are forming a small groups called domains. In case of ferromagnetic substances, the metal ions of the substance, they are grouped together. In case of ferromagnetic substances, the metal ions of the substance, they are clubbed together, they are grouped together into small region. These regions are called domains. So this domain is nothing but a group of ions which are present in ferromagnetic substances. So what type of arrangement of domain is present in case of ferromagnetic, in case of antiferro and ferrimagnetic substance? Let us discuss. So let us understand about domains. So these domains are nothing but domains. In solid state, metal ions of ferromagnetic substance, are grouped. Metal ions of ferromagnetic substances are grouped. So that is called domain. So it is nothing but a group of metal ions, in ferromagnetic substances. So now these domains are going to align in different directions in magnetic field. So we can also describe ferromagnetic, ferrimagnetic and antiferromagnetic substances on the basis of these domains. So in case of ferromagnetic substances, what happens? Ferromagnetic, I have already told you, it is because of the presence of more number of unpaired electrons and it is strongly attracted by the magnetic field. They can be permanently magnetized. They can be converted into permanent magnets or they can be permanently magnetized. So what happens to domains in case of ferromagnetic substance means all the domains, they are going to align in the same direction of magnetic field. In case of ferromagnetic substances, so these domains are aligned in the direction of magnetic field, like this. So domains have same direction. In case of ferromagnetic substances. So as they have same direction of orientation as that of magnetic field, even after removing magnetic field, what happens? This direction is present in the same order. The direction of alignment of domains is not going to change even if you remove the magnetic field. Hence ferromagnetic substances can be permanently magnetized. Coming to the next type, that is fourth one, antiferromagnetic substances. So once again, in antiferromagnetic substances also, so the alignment or direction of alignment or arrangement of domains is similar, but they are orient in opposite direction. In case of antiferromagnetic substances, so once again domains have domains have opposite alignment, hence they cancel out each other's magnetic moment. It means to say that the net magnetic moment of the domain is 0 because they have arranged parallel and anti-parallel but in equal numbers. So when these domains have aligned in parallel and anti-parallel directions with the same numbers, say 3 domains are arranged in parallel and another 3 have anti-parallel directions, what happens to the net magnetic moment of these domains? That will be 0. So hence they are not attracted by the magnetic field, hence they are antiferromagnetic substances. So these antiferromagnetic substances are also having domains similar to ferromagnetic substances, but they are aligned in opposite direction. I will show you. Hence cancels each other's magnetic moment. So one cancel another magnetic moment's effect, means +3 -3 gives rise to 0, like that. So those who are orient in parallel direction can cancel the effect of those who are orient in anti-parallel direction, like that. The net magnetic moment of these type of solids is 0, hence they are not attracted by the magnetic field. When we talk of examples, the best example is MnO, manganese oxide. So these have domains similar to ferromagnetic. These have domains similar to ferromagnetic, solids, but their domains are oppositely oriented. And hence cancel out each other's magnetic moment. So here magnetic moments of the domains, they cancel with each other. So that's why the net magnetic moment shown by domains of antiferromagnetic substances is 0. In other words, these are not attracted by the magnetic field. Example, MnO. So let us see how the domains are arranged in case of antiferromagnetic substances. So this is the arrangement of domains in case of antiferromagnetic substances. See here, domains are aligned in parallel as well as anti-parallel directions, as they are in equal numbers. So I am showing 3 domains with a parallel direction and other 3 with anti-parallel direction. Hence they cancel out each other's magnetic moment. A net magnetic moment of these domains is 0. In other words, these are not attracted by the magnetic field. So substances which are having such type of domains, they are called as antiferromagnetic substances. So the alignment of domain is also important. It may be asked to draw the schematic representation of alignment of domains for 1 mark. So next, coming to the last type, ferrimagnetic substances. In case of ferrimagnetic substances, the magnetic moments of the domains, they are aligned parallel as well as anti-parallel directions. In case of anti-ferromagnetic substance also, we have parallel and anti-parallel alignment of domains, but they are in equal numbers, hence they cancel the effect of one with another. So in ferrimagnetic substance, so the magnetic moment of the domains, they are aligned in parallel and anti-parallel direction, but in unequal numbers. They are not in equal numbers. So what happens? So say some 4 domains have positive magnetic moment and 2 domains have negative magnetic moment. So if you subtract, 4 minus 2 will be 2. Some magnetic moment will remain. Means, so these substances can be weakly attracted. These substances can be weakly attracted by the magnetic field compared to our ferromagnetic substances. So after looking the alignment or direction of arrangement of domains, you will be understand very easily. So what are ferrimagnetic substances means? It is observed when, so this type of ferrimagnetism, it is observed when magnetic moments of domains in the substance, magnetic moments of domains in the substance aligned in parallel and anti-parallel directions, aligned in parallel and anti-parallel directions in unequal numbers. So this one is important. They are present in unequal numbers. So that's why the net magnetic moment is not 0 here. They possess a certain value of magnetic moment, hence they are weakly attracted. These type of magnetic substances, ferrimagnetic substances, they are weakly attracted by the magnetic field. They are weakly attracted by magnetic field. Compared to ferromagnetic substances, they are weakly attracted by magnetic field. Coming to the examples, magnetite Fe3O4 along with some ferrites like MgFe2O4 and similarly zinc ferrite ZnFe2O4 etc. So these are some examples. Now coming to what is the direction of alignment of domains in this case means. So see here, once again parallel and anti-parallel direction of domains or magnetic moment of domains is present, but they are in unequal number. So the alignment is like this. Observe here, domains are aligned like this. So now you see here 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 domains have parallel, 2 domains are anti-parallel. So that's why we say, so in ferrimagnetic substances, so domains are aligned in parallel and anti-parallel directions, but in unequal numbers. Means there will be some net magnetic moment is there. As a result, these are weakly attracted by the magnetic field. So this is about ferrimagnetic substance and magnetic properties of solids. Lastly, I would like to conclude this first chapter, solid state, by letting you know about radius ratio. As per as our PU syllabus is concerned, it is not necessary, but it is important for CET and NEET concept. So let's have a brief discussion on what is radius ratio, how it is related with coordination number and geometry of a solid. Radius ratio is the ratio of radius of cation to the radius of anion. It is the ratio of radius of cation to the radius of anion. Radius of cation to the radius of anion. So say r plus is radius of cation and r minus is radius of anion. So this radius ratio, after calculating the radius ratio in a particular crystal, we are able to decide what is the coordination number of that particular unit cell or what type of geometry is present when the radius ratio values come in a particular range. So now let us see the relationship between what is the radius ratio, how it is linked with coordination number and geometry of the solids. So now let us have a simple chart here. Radius ratio, coordination number, structure, what is the structure or geometry of the crystal. One example to understand. Say for suppose if this radius ratio is present between 0.155 to 0.225. Suppose if the radius ratio is in the range of 0.155 to 0.225, then the coordination number will be 3. Coordination number is 3. Structure is triangular planar. So, an example is BO3. In case of orthoboric acid, boron oxide units they are present in triangular planar geometry. So, BO3 can be example for this one. So, we have to remember this radius ratio 0.155 to 0.225. So, from 0.225 to 0.414, the coordination number will be 4. And the expected geometry or structure is tetrahedral. We can have the example for tetrahedral geometry is zinc sulfide, ZnS. ZnS is the example with coordination number 4 and geometry tetrahedral. So coming to next range, 0.414 to 0.732. 0.414 to 0.732. So this is called having coordination number 6, so that is octahedral geometry. So example is NaCl, coordination number 6 with octahedral geometry is NaCl. So coming to the last range, 0.73221, 0.73221. So coordination number will be 8. So the expected structure or geometry is BCC or body centered one, body centered BCC. So the example is cesium chloride, CSCl, cesium chloride. So this is about radius ratio or and how it is connected with coordination number and geometry of a solid.